Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game we'll take a look at how to play the Battle Sabertooth. Alright, let's go. At the bottom here, I'm playing as a speed specialist. My opponent, Zenzu's X, is playing as a quick supply specialist. Whenever you're picking speed, I think you want to go aggro, otherwise it's just a little too wasteful to not be within rock throw away from your opponent's tower. So I definitely want to go aggro. And to start off, I am going to use the Void Eye as both a tank as well as a DPS against the Tarantulas. Now keep in mind my opponent is quick supply, so even though he didn't do it the first turn of adding just 2 more spiders, he very well could. So right now he is floating about 200 supplies, so I need to be prepared for that in the later rounds. In terms of trap clear, his trap clear is definitely better with the spiders versus my tanks. However, once we get through the spiders, I think the Void Eye will have a slight advantage over the marksman if I still have sledgehammers left over. Alright, getting to round 2, we are looking at a bunch of interesting cards. The ones that stand out to me was the improved Wraith. My opponent took the smart marksman because he already has marksman on the field. That makes sense. The improved Wraith, well, first of all, Wraith is a huge aggressive unit that is just so useful. You can pair your Wraith with steel balls most of the time. You can work with them with rhinos. You can do Wraith Phoenix to get into like a whole air combo. So it's just a lot of possibilities with the Wraith. Another thing is that right now my chaff clear is kind of bad, right? The only 2 chaff clear units are these sledgehammers, so I needed something to especially cover the right hand side, and the Wraith will be a great addition to that as well. And also I'm speed specialist, so I know eventually I would need to get into some sort of aggro comp with steel balls or with rhinos or whatever heavy hitter that I need to get on the ground. So Wraith will be a great complement to those units. Alright, back to the game. Great missile here. Capitalizing on the weakness of just the stacking sledge with the Void Eyes. So if you are looking to put your units together, try not to do that. The reason I did that is because I want them to shoot at the same unit at the same time. Sometimes with the sledgehammers, they may lock onto the tarantulas, and if you have your Void Eyes like 2 squares behind, it might be a little too far off, and they end up shooting crawlers instead. All right, we got Sabertooth is a great unit. I think the Scorpion is also a great unit, but I think in this case we want to go with the Sabertooth for the aggressive play. My opponent ended up picking the defensive unit, which is the Melting Point. Right now, the Melting Point has a bit of an overlap with the Smart Marksman. Now, granted, the Marksmen themselves aren't really that powerful. You have to really get the levels, and Melting Point is just a giant killer. But right now, they're kind of serving the same purpose, so that is a little bit wasteful. For me, I was going to go on the left-hand side and adding another Wraith here with the Sabertooth. But then I figured there may be a melting point on that side, which is why I went to the right-hand side instead. Because I wasn't expecting to put a melting point here. There's no reason to expect. Like, at most, he's going to put a marksman here to deal with his Wraith. But I wouldn't expect him to put a melter here. And it ended up working well for me. Alright, level 3 Sabertooth. 23,000 damage per shot. So that's going to one-hit tarantulas. It's going to one-hit towers. Is probably going to, what, 3-hit a melting point, which is really good. Unfortunately, got dragged away by these crawlers, so it's actually moving away quite far. That's okay, though. I do have an improved Wraith, so it does do 30% more damage and 5%, well, 5 meters more range. Alright, boom, goes the melting point. I'm going to get a tower, and we're going to wrap up this round. Alright, now we have the Saber on the field. I expect my opponent to put another Melter here right now. So I need to make a decision. Either I can keep the Saber and move into something else, or I need to surround the Saber with a bunch of chaff. First thing first, I took the subsidized steel ball. It is not a cheap card, but I think it's going to be worth it. In the later games, having the ability to buy like 150 supply steel balls and give them Mechabellum, which essentially spawns a full squad of crawlers, is really good. Because if your opponent goes for something like fire, your steel ball can actually tank all the way through the fire, and then when they die, they spawn crawlers. In an aggro position, fire is very common, oil is very common, so whenever I see subsidized steel balls, I just grab them because the end game possibilities is fantastic. All right, we got fangs at the front, melters at the back. This is the classic defensive build. Everything is hugging the towers. I would love to see some level ups on the towers because everything is so close. Right now with the level 1 Wraith, all it takes was like 2 volleys from this Wraith and this tower goes down. Alright, first let's see how it goes. Another thing you notice is that I actually put 2 squads of fangs in the back as opposed to crawlers. When you're speed specialist, the fangs themselves actually walk pretty fast at 9 meters per second. So having them in the back actually protects you against both crawler flanks, phoenixes, or even wasps. So they're more versatile than crawlers. Now, of course, they're not going to be reinforcing your army as quickly as crawlers, but that's okay because you can always put crawlers down later on. All right, so it looks like my opponent is going to get this round. The Void Eyes are doing a surprising amount of damage to this melter, end up taking it down, and also taking down a marksman. So good job, Void Eyes. I think they should be, yeah, they're leveling here, which is really good. And these are super cheap levels. These are 50 supply levels, and you get a huge boost of damage and just super annoying to deal with because they also have energy absorption. So Void Eye is one of those quote-unquote chaff units that I would not mind leveling at all because it's just a huge chunk of health. It's super annoying to deal with. It's just an all-around great unit. Okay, another great set of options. 2 good items that I could have used for my Wraith, but instead I took Assault Scorpion. Why Assault Scorpion? Well, in my mind, I was going back and forth between what is going to be the heavy hitter of choice. I actually have 3 choices. So I can go with Sabertooth, I can go with a lot of Mechabellum balls, or I can go with Assault Scorpion. All of these are fantastic choices. Assault Scorpion right now I think is the strongest. You get double shot, you get range, you kill a melter in 1 shot, right? It's just really good unit. But since I already have the cheap steel balls, might as well start putting them down right away. By putting down steel balls, you'll learn a few things, because if your opponent takes multi-melter, which sometimes players do against steel balls, then your Scorpions and your Sabertooth becomes a little bit more helpful because the multi-melter actually don't do a whole lot of damage. They have to be locked on for a very long time in order to kill those units. But if they don't take multi-melter, then you can go harder into the steel balls, possibly taking 8-gun on the Wraith because it's very difficult to deal with something like that without the multi-melter. So we're going to have steel balls out here as like a feeler unit. We're going to see what the opponent is going to do. Alright, double melter, still very strong. Level 2 Void Eye though, they're doing great damage. We're actually getting to the tower, which is really good. But unfortunately, there won't be anything left to kill this level 1, now level 2 melter. Okay, still kill some Mustangs though. Very nice. Alright, Sabertooth is offered once again. I think I'm going to take it. Yeah. And for my opponent, the best choice is either going to be the Hounds or the Vulcans. In this case, the Vulcan is better because I have improved Wraith. So if you put Hounds at the front as your chaff clear, they are going to be destroyed very quickly. Alright, we're going to put down a level 5 Sabertooth. And this is a big guy here. And it's aiming at the non-laser sighted melting point. I want this to survive as long as it possibly can. More steel balls are being added in. So steel ball is just super annoying to deal with Mechabellum. And the board is really coming together, right? So we have very decent chaff clear with this improved Wraith. We have a lot of bodies. We still have our old sledgies from the start of the game, and now we're adding in sort of a late arriving steel balls. And then we have a single heavy hitter in the form of a level 5 Sabertooth dealing 44,000 damage per shot. So this guy one shots the melting point, and 2 shots a level 2 Vulcan. So not too shabby. The interesting dynamic between the Saber and the melting point is that if, for example, if you get double shot and if you're within the range of each other with nothing in between, a double shot Saber always wins. But if you are being outranged or there's just too much stuff to get through, then your Saber will lose. So it becomes a bit of a chaff war for now, and I'm feeling pretty confident with my chaff situation because of these steel balls. Okay, my opponent ended up taking multi-melter this turn. This is actually good news for me because with multi-melt, the range is only 100 meters. My Sabertooth has 95 meters, so even if it locks on to a level 5 Saber, it doesn't have enough time to charge up to full, and therefore not able to kill this level 5 Saber. So this guy can just walk over and just casually pop melting points. And if my opponent decides to take range on these melters, then I will also take range. Or I can just go even harder with secondary armament because I am a speed specialist, so I can go pretty fast into his melter where the range doesn't really matter that much. Okay, alright, big Saber. Redeployment is a good card. We already know there's oil on the ground, so we don't really want to push into this area, especially with higher leveled units like this level 2 Wraith. So I took the redeployment. My opponent decided to take the extra item, putting onto the Mustangs. The Mustangs themselves, I think they're okay. They're more of a chaff at this point than a DPSer. I think what my opponent is more worried about is a sudden switch into something like Wasps to deal with the melters, but he already has multi-melt, so I don't see the point of going Wasps. Alright, so we are seeing Incendiary Vulcans. That is going to clear a lot of the stuff at the front and also ignite oil, of course. And this is where the steel balls becomes even more useful because the crawlers inside of the balls will survive across this pool of fire and break out. Yeah, there they are. Not with multi-melter aiming at them, unfortunately. But now we got 3 Sabertooth. We're just ramming them down. This melter doesn't even stand a chance. This guy did lock on, but now we're at the tower. Not upgraded, which means any tap would do. Okay. Getting rid of the last Mustang here. This level 5 Saber is still in action. Spinning around. We have another volley from the Incendiary Vulcan. It doesn't matter. All we have left are these big units. Level 5 Saber once again. Double tap. Here it goes. Level 1 Melter. The tower. We even got a level 2 Saber surviving. And it's going to double tap this Vulcan. Maybe not. Alright. Nuke is offered. Nuke is really good for my opponent because I have Wraith in the air and I can't shield the air. But I took the nuke anyways. Third tech on the melter. Electromag. I think the point of that is not so much to disable the Sabertooth technology, is rather just to slow them down. Because it does reduce the speed by 40%. Alright. Earlier you saw me hesitate a little bit. I was going to take range. Then I decided there's no point of getting range if I want all my units to be fighting in the same line. The better choice would be the secondary armament. You do more damage. You get to chaff clear a little better. in case my opponent put down medium-sized units that these Wraith aren't really good for, right? So the Sabertooth becomes really good. And yeah, just do more damage into these giants. So now these are the official Brawler Sabertooth. The side gun does 2,000 damage per rank, so at level 6 it does 12,000 damage per rank every 4 seconds per gun. That's pretty significant damage. And the main gun does 52,000 damage and it has double shot, so that's 100k for like a double shot. And level 2 Vulcan is nothing. Alright, even the level 2 Sabertooth on the other side is doing well, but since I didn't have my trap clear anymore, right, this Sabertooth is just gonna get stuck on a lot of crawlers. Alright, we still have some Sabertooth left, but I think this round is gonna go to my opponent because of the nuke. Alright, we got some options. I think the boats are pretty good for some DPS output, but I think the raiding is the correct choice here. The multi-melt is really powerful, especially into the steel balls, but if I can disable the multi-melt and if I can disable some of the other units around, then this could be a victory round for me. I know my opponent will probably take either the Raiden or the boats, because they're both really good into the Wraith. So end up going to be the boats. All right. Two missiles just to get rid of the fans in front of these Vulcans. We're taking temp speed and temp range, which means the Sabertooth are moving at 14 meters per second, almost as quickly as the standard pack of crawlers at 16. So what it does is it guarantees the snipe out of these two Vulcans, and then moving on to this Tarantula. So that means my opponent will practically have no chap clear for a while. And these steel balls are getting in. Both Vulcans are dead. I'm going to slow this down a little bit. And here we have the Raiden doing work, disabling this melting point, allowing even the steel balls to lock on. The other side, the double shot Sabertooth took care of the other melting point. I am losing, however, on the right hand side. That is my weak side. I don't have as many Wraith. I don't have big sabers, but I am winning considerably on the left hand side. And the Raidens alone also deal decent damage, almost 6,000 damage per shot. Alright, Melter charging onto a level 2 Saber is actually pretty good, and disabling a level 3 Saber with the EM. So this is a good Melter, but it will soon be disabled, which means something is going to be free, and that something is going to be that level 6 Sabertooth, and that is going to be that. Alright, so a very interesting, exciting game where we have very speedy tanks with Wraith just kind of punch through to the tower. We started off with steel balls, but as soon as we saw the multi-melter, we decided not to go too hard into the steel balls, but instead pivoted into Sabertooth. Well, I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you want to see another one, here's one for you, and I'll see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.